Well, we go back to the Supreme Court for more arguments on child affirming care, aka child mutilation, aka meatball surgery.
Wow!
But it turns out this time that one of the judges has allowed their stupidity to shine right on through.
Fuck!
I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this, here's a hint. She doesn't know what a woman is.
How do you know that you're a man?
How do I know that I'm a, I guess because I got a dick.
Huh.
And it's what's next. Hey, happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Jazz Berganza, what's next? Your daily dose. Hope you guys are feeling good on this day. And if you're on the East Coast, excuse me, my voice started to crack there. Yeah, puberty coming in late. If you're, a little chilly, get ready for the blast because we're going to get hit with it. Anyway, excuse me. This is the second of two videos. Not a second part, but, I guess you could say. In my first video, there are arguments in regards to a child affirming case coming out of Tennessee that either A, you're for it, or B, you're against it. Now, of course, you have attorneys who are for it going against the Supreme Court, but we haven't heard from all the judges. We've heard from one who basically compared, child mutilation and taking hormones to taking aspirin. And now we focus on number two. Her name, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Oh, you may be familiar with the name, man. And we're going to have fun with this one. This, coming from Breitbart. Justice Jackson, who wouldn't define what a woman was, claims that trans drug ban is sex discrimination. Yes, allow the laughing to begin. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who would not define what a woman was during her confirmation hearing, suggested in oral arguments on Wednesday that a Tennessee law banning puberty blockers for minors constitutes as sex discrimination. Jackson made her worthless comments as the parties presented their cases in United States versus Scarametti. The Dementia Administration is challenging the law, arguing that because it deals with classifications of sex, it should be subject to heightened scrutiny. Under the extensive jurisprudence developed by the court concerning civil rights and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, any distinctions of race by government must be subject to what is called strict scrutiny if they are past legal muster. Distinctions of sex are subject to a lower level of scrutiny called intermediate scrutiny. Did not know that. Distinctions of sex are subject to a lower level of scrutiny called intermediate scrutiny. Other distinctions are subject to rational analysis scrutiny, which simply asks whether the government has a rational purpose in enacting the law in question. Oof, wow, talk about a mouthful. The Dementia Administration argued that the Tennessee law, which is upheld by the Sixth Circuit, should be remanded back down for analysis under heightened scrutiny, i.e. the intermediate scrutiny standards for sex classification cases. Tennessee Solicitor General Matthew Rice argued that the heightened scrutiny was not necessary because the law did not refer to sex. Both boys and girls would be protected by the ban on puberty blockers, he said, meaning there was no distinction. Justice Jackson, who infamously refused to define what a woman was during her confirmation hearing, of course, she's like the 13th man on a 12-man bench, pushed back. She said the very fact that a girl who wanted to become a boy or a boy who wanted to become a girl will not be able to obtain puberty blockers mean that the law is referring to sex, therefore had to pass heightened scrutiny. Rice disagreed, saying that the same drugs were still available to girls and boys who experienced, quote, precocious puberty, i.e. puberty too early at age, and wanted to delay it. The point was not as sex as children, he said, that same drugs would be simply delay the process of sexual maturation in a child who wanted to remain the same gender, would cause irreparable harm and used to change the child's gender identity. Jackson pushed back, knowing that Rice was still referring to sex, even as described to a part of a different medical purpose. Rice responded to at some point it was impossible to avoid noting biological sex, but insisted that the law did not. Jackson tried to argue that Rice's approach was similar to adopted by the defenders of law against interracial marriage. Now when the true stupid comes to the forefront, comparing giving puberty blockers and child mutilation to interracial marriage. Wow. Where the court struck down Loving versus Virginia in 1967. There too, she said, the Virginia law in question did not apply differently to members of different races, but nevertheless upheld racisms. Tennessee argument, she said, threatened the entire foundation of the equal protection jurisprudence, including landmark cases on racial equality. No, you're an idiot. And here comes the voice of reason. Justice Samuel Alito pushed in the opposite direction, knowing that trans mental identity, unlike sex or race, was not a immutable category. The ACLU attorney Chase Strangio, for the first openly trans mental lawyer to argue before the court, tried to dodge Alito's questions, but ultimately had to admit that it's called common sense, biological facts, that trans mental individuals can change their minds. I'm sorry, let me read this by Stephen Miller. The term gender-affirming care did not even enter the lexicon until 5 minutes ago. They had to create for the sole purpose of disguising what's involved. And what's involved? Wrecking children's lives.
Does the category of, does transgender status apply
This is Judge
to
Samuel Alito.
individuals who are gender fluid?
I think that the distinguishing characteristic is to have a birth sex that does not align with, or a gender that does not align with one's birth sex. So it may include people who have different understandings of their gender identity, but I think it is still the distinguishing
For those
characteristic
who are trying to,
of a birth
clean
sex
out their
and a
ears,
gender identity that are incongruent.
that's a dude.
Are there individuals who are born male, assigned male at birth, who at one point identify as female, but then later
Alito's trying to be very judicial
come to
here.
identify as male, and likewise
Not hit this dude over the head with common
individuals
sense.
female at birth, at some point
But here he comes.
identify as female. Identify as male, but later come to identify as female. Are there not such people?
There are such people. I agree with that, Justice.
So it's not an immutable characteristic, is it?
Well, I think people's understanding of it shifts, but the evidence shows that there is at least a strong underlying basis. And I think the normative reason for that particular consideration is whether or not this is something that someone should or could change, and whether they should have to change it in order to receive constitutional protections. And I think transgender status squarely fits within that.
That's hilarious. So this dude was doing mental gymnastics in trying to rationalize or justify the stupidity of his severe mental illness. You got two judges. My first video was Justice Sonia Sotomayor, comparing child affirming care and the denial, to aspirin. And then you have this Ketanji Brown Jackson, the 13th man on a 12-man bench. The forgotten one, the red-headed stepchild of the Supreme Court, who during her confirmation hearing, again, for those of you with short-term memories, couldn't define what a woman was, even though she herself is a woman. We think. So for her to do two stupid things, A, comparing the denial of hormones and child mutilation to racism, and saying that it's racist to do so, and two, comparing it to interracial marriage. Like I said in my first video, this should be an open and shut case. These arguments, and I know the decision's not going to be made until June of 25, and in June of next year, but I would just speed up the process. I would, because you have someone who, like Justice Alito, who comes in and squashes the dude in a dress, the dude in the mental illness, and says, yeah, but, you can't refute this, can you? And of course, he's like, he's like, yeah, I thought so. This is comedy. This is gold, Jerry. Gold. And with that being said, I'm Jazz Borganzo. This is what's next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share, subscribe to it. Hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a thing. Continue spreading the word about the show. Appreciate you guys watching as always. And we'll see you next time. Peace.